In some ways, this place is just your average, traditional village hall. And in another way, there's an alternative reality going on. Welcome to one of the UK's small, radical alternatives to school.
This is Sophie. You're one of the facilitators here, so there's two of you that are doing that, you and Sarah.
Yeah.
But I only got a few questions, so I want to be quite quick. The first one is around what you would say are the three most kind of radical or transformative elements of what you're doing here.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. So there's a few things I think that set us apart in that way. One of them is that we're children's rights based, which is not standard in spaces where children are with adults, and that children's rights underpin all of our policies and practices as like a basic expectation of how children will be treated. The other thing is that we're consent based, which is also something that isn't the norm.
Yeah.
And probably beyond that, I mean, I guess our actual attitude about what constitutes education or how we understand learning is pretty different to what you would find in any other space.
Yeah.
In the sense that it's a transdisciplinary approach, that it's self-directed and has like an emergent nature to it.
What people will primarily see on this film is a lot of play. I mean, there has been some gardening and I've spotted a little bit of writing, but it is primarily play. What do you say about kind of the nature of what can happen when kids get together and learn in this kind of environment?
I would say, like, to the untrained eye, I hope that's not like rude, it can just look like they're just playing, and play has like a bad reputation in our society as being something kind of meaningless or not useful use of your time, but we have a big respect for flow state in our space, and know that people that are really in tune with themselves and find it easy to get into flow are going to be able to use that capability for different purposes in their life. So even when it looks like nothing's happening, you just can't tell like what someone's internal experience is of that moment of collaboration or teamwork that happens to be happening in the role play, or even just the process of deciding for themselves, like taking personal responsibility for themselves is like huge in terms of personal development.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing, I've been trying to take little subtle videos of the role play, which I haven't managed to capture at all because it's been maybe an hour and a half, I think, this one game about a magical forest. And the whole way through, it seems like it's just, imagination play, but the whole way through it, they're totally negotiating with each other. They're negotiating what each other is prepared to do. They're showing leadership skills as they try and get their idea floated into the group. It's actually quite intense teamwork going on, and so many skills are apparent in that collaboration of just a super basic, well, it's never basic, but a super simple game, what appears to be.
And I do think it's interesting that now there is more discourse around the benefits of role play in adult spaces, like in management strategies and things. There'll be like adults are encouraged to explore issues and solve problems using role play. And yet somehow when children are doing it, it's diminished as not really mattering, like literally just being pointless.
Or not being educational.
Not being educational, exactly. But I think it doesn't look like a traditional schooling environment looks, and so it's so easy, I think, to miss the nuance of what's happening here in terms of the people's experience. And because it is authentic, and we're not putting anyone through the motions for kind of like an end objective, as it were, then you see something that is a lot more organic in nature, and it's more free-flowing and variable, and it's like a longer term view.
Yeah.
So each week here is a bit different, and it's affected by loads of different things, like the weather affects how people choose to use their time here.
Yeah.
Different activities that might have been suggested can influence like what people do. Even things like if it's a particular time of year and there's celebrations or there's different family things going on, can inspire people to want to use or work on different skills they have, like whether it's making cards or writing letters or writing a story for someone. I mean, there's so many different factors that influence, I guess, what self-direction in a space like this can look like.
Okay, I'm lying down. Oh, he's sitting on his head. Matty, could you move the chair over here? What? Because, I don't know. You?
What do you say to people when they say, oh well, you're just the lucky few who get to opt out of this system and do something like this, you know, that's such a privilege, you know, you're not really making change, and you know, those kinds of accusations, because I feel them quite like yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know, I think it's all, for me, it's a bit of a cop-out sometimes to label some kind of action as just being privileged and then kind of like dismissing it on those terms. Like, I think it's worth exploring a little bit more around it before just writing things off in that way, because the truth of it is that if you have a bit of privilege or you are more privileged, then you have an option of how you use that privilege. And frankly, I think that what we're doing is a really moral and ethical project that is a good use of any privilege that we may have. It gives us the security to pursue it.
Yeah.
And so I don't really have any feeling about being accused of like this being a privileged move, because there are certain things that privilege me in being able to do it. That being said, like, there's also been massive personal sacrifices and compromises that have gone into the years of preamble into us having this space open. And there's definitely times when I didn't feel like I was having some kind of easy ride to like make it happen.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like everything, it's just not black and white that this is some kind of privileged choice. Like, most people don't choose into these spaces, they opt for like safer options. Like, there's a massive risk-taking feeling that comes with doing something differently, especially when it involves children and especially when it involves education. Like, people have almost an aversion of doing anything other than school. So I think it's kind of undermining just to blanketly label these alternative type of projects as just like privileged, meaningless privileged things. And personally, like, my motivation has always been to use whatever resources and time and space we have to develop practices and ways of being together and the, you know, these types of settings in order for them to be able to proliferate into spaces that are mainstream. But if no one is doing that innovation work to actually like get the practice going and iron out the problems and deal with, you know, the stuff that comes up with this, then there's absolutely no hope of any of these ideas or principles ever becoming more widely accessible, because you know, people, you know, we need to be building an evidence base, for example, for people to feel that it's an option that can be shared in other spaces, and you need systems that work, and the only way to develop that is to get on with it. So yeah, I mean, and also I think that like the value in what we're doing is absolutely massive. Like, it's critical, actually, I think, just in terms of all the other movements that are trying to lead us into a more equitable and sustainable society. Our part of the puzzle is just the education system aspect of it, but you could also look at any kind of innovation in environmental sustainability or renewable energies and just say, oh, it's just totally privileged to even be bothering with solar panels because only certain groups can use it, or it's only, you know, all innovation is initially only accessible to the minority. But you know, that's just part of the process, I think, of creating new things. And I don't know a single person involved in this work that doesn't feel frustrated and sad by the fact that their space can't be open to anyone. Like, everyone wants that. Like, everyone doing a project like this wants their space to be open to anyone that would like to access it. And the reality of it is that the funding opportunities are just not there to provide a space for free. Like, it's not possible. So it's a compromise, and I'm definitely at a point where I'm willing to like make that compromise right now with a view to be able to share more widely later on. And honestly, like, work through the mistakes in our privileged setting. like we're the best positioned, I guess, to take chances and risks. So that's a good thing. Like that's not a bad thing or a reason not to do it.
Yeah.
There was so much to love about the cabin, but the thing that impressed me the most was the way that the children had undergone facilitation training so that they could chair their own meetings. This feels like such a helpful and empowering skill to make sure everybody can get their voice heard. I loved how all of the decisions were made democratically, including divvying out the end of day chores.
Sophie, what tidy up job would you like?
Always the same. Beanbags.
Beanbags. Emmy?
Chairs.
Thank you so much, Sophie, Sarah and the cabin for having us here. We're leaving feeling really inspired. If you want to find out more, you can click the links below. Wherever you are in the world, stay radical.